Zera Shimshon, very popular book, very masugal for a lot of things. So let's do Zera Shimshon on Chanukah. And Be'ezer Hashem, we will continue the series after Chanukah also as, yeah, move onwards. But let's do a Zera Shimshon for Chanukah, and we start from here. We're going to do the second piece. He has his pieces on Chanukah together with Parshas Miketz. We're doing entry bays. So now he's regarding the minhag that we have, that while the candles are burning, women do not do malacha. Right? Yeah, we husbands know that. We have to, after we light, the women do nothing for half an hour, in a good way, and we have to make their tea for them or whatever, run the household. Right, so now he wants to go in understanding this minhag on a deeper level, and also a little bit in from a halachic standpoint also. So now regarding this, the minhag of Isser Malacha that women do on Chanukah, while the candles are burning. Yesh a farsha pasuk. So first, let's say a pshat in the pasuk in the Eishes Chayil, which is what we say Leil Shas, which is psukim from Mishlei. Tnula mi pri yadeha. Give the Eishes Chayil, give her from the fruits of her hand. Listen to the part. Give her from the fruits of her hand. Right? So the kasha, this pasuk is very difficult when you really think about it. All right, first of all, you have to give it to her. It's hers. If it's the fruits of her hand, it means she produced it. All right, so it already belongs to you. You don't have to give it to her. It's hers. What was that? Give her from the fruits of her hand. It's hers already. All right, you don't give it to her. Vod mahu miprida, and give her mipri from the fruits of her hand. You only give her some of the fruits of her labor, not all of it. Why not? So why do you have to give it to her? It's hers already, right? And why only some from the fruits of her handiwork? It said, the pasuk, Eishes Chayil's off, right? V'yahalelu basharim, they will praise her in the gates. Why in the gates more than anywhere else? If she is a woman of valor, worthy of praise, you praise her everywhere. Right? Even though he said a drasha, he previously addressed some of this in Parshas Chayei because Eishes Chayil, we darshan goes on the Shechina, it also goes on Sora Imenu. Right, so aside from we said a pshat in this pasuk back in Chayei Sarah, but that's not what concerns us right now, right? Od yesh the lomar, but we're going to say another pshat over here for our Jewish on Chanukah. Shekvar noda sheyesh noag shos bacha kol laila v'yesh ach b'yom rishon v'yom hashmini. Interesting. There's the first I hear of it, but I don't know everything. But says the Zera Shimshon, what we do, what's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, that they don't do melacha while the candles are burning, presumably candles burning for the half an hour where it's an obligation, not if you have a big candle that's burning all night. So that's the minhag that we know that's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, right? But he says that there were women that had the minhag not to do melacha all night long. Right, and there were also those who were machmir af b'yom shemini, not to do melacha, not just all night long. Right, those also have not to do any melacha on day 1 of Chanukah and day 8 of Chanukah. Right, v'yesh machmiros yaser. Right, and there are those who even have even more stringencies, more than to even do more than just day 1 and day 8. So, we men, we got off lucky that our women only know the minhag of while the candles are burning. All right. So, so now the achronim, who are aware of these minhagim, talk about whether if it's a legit minhag, right? And if a woman started doing it, say, look, it's enough just while the candles are burning. Are you allowed to say that, or is it too late? Right? Can we be mekel once they accepted one of these more stringent minhagim to not do malacha. I say, I'm being a little bit sarcastic about stringent because it's time off for them, right? But for some women, I found that they get very fidgety and they can't, they can't bear sitting still. So indeed, it might be a chumrah for those who just are too fidgety and can't sit still. But either way, so the Yachron want to know these minhagim that are, for taking the perspective of the fidgety woman that would like to do malacha, so are machmir, to do it all, no malacha all night long, or no malacha, not just all night long, but also day 1 and day 8, or even more than that. Once they accepted this minhag, can we be mekot? Say, don't worry about it, just do the minhag of, let's say, not doing malacha while the candles are burning. So now one could say that if it's a married woman, so now her earnings belong to her husband, right? That's the takana. You feed her, she gives you her earnings. Say, listen, I'm sorry, I'm taking on a chumrah. I'm not doing malacha. Nothing doing. I need your work. There's not just as far as work, that maseh del ba'ala, as far as parnasa, but there's also certain actions of maintenance of household, and of maintenance of, family life, that a woman has to do for her husband, right? So you could say, listen, nothing doing. You're obligated to do these actions for me, and you cannot decide to be machmir and not fulfill your obligations towards me, right? So seemingly he should be able to, on the one hand, he should be able to insist on his rights. This is what if it's earnings, you owe your earnings to me. You can't, because I support you. You can't goof off. And if it's a malacha that has to do with the maintenance of the household that a woman's obligated to do, you do it. You can't, take on these chumras at the expense of what you legit owe me. That's one way of looking at it. Inami, or also Shim Tirtzal Achmin Atzwa Shabbat Lo Yiten Lo Mizonos. Here's Shulchan Aruch Even Ezer. Kolisha Shetim Lasos Mlachim Mlachos She Chayeves Lasosan Kovso Lasosan Ve'eno Zana Ad Shetease. Right? Take it, even more than that. Let's say she insists. No. Right? Tough noogies. I want to do this chumrah of not doing malacha all night long, and not doing malacha on the first day of Chanukah at all, and not doing malacha on the 8th of Chanukah at all. He's saying it might even go so extreme as that if she doesn't give in, so the halacha is that if a woman doesn't fulfill her responsibilities that she owes the husband, he's not obligated to support her, right? So he could cut off her food. Listen, you're not doing what you're supposed to. I'm the one who feeds you. No food until you do it. Okay. We say that goes to the extreme that she takes on this minhag against the will of her husband, or had this minhag brought it into the marriage against the will of her husband, that not only should he be allowed to insist that she not do it, but if she refuses and keeps the chumrah, right, maybe he could cut her off and not support her until she, until she either submits, or of course just cut it off so long as she's on strike. And so for Chanukah she won't eat, or Chanukah during the times that she's, not doing what is expected of her, because the husband supports her, so the husband will just cut off support. Taz Orachaim, Simitosh Reish Al Ayin Sif Cotton Bays, but the Taz and Orachaim, these are the laws of Chanukah, Tof Reish Ayin Sif Cotton Bays. Dima din Chanukah din Rosh Chodesh, but din Rosh Chodesh Kasav Abach, She'enu Masuros B'Mlocha, Amachzork Aval Isser Hu Al Baalem, She'enu Mecholim Lakufo San L'Mlocha. So the Taz compares the minhag of not doing malacha on Chanukah to the minhag that women have of not doing melacha on Rosh Chodesh. And he quotes from his father-in-law, the Bach, that, this din that they don't, this minhag, I mean to say, that they don't do melacha on Rosh Chodesh, because I believe that's because they weren't nichshon, cheta egel, they get as a special yom tov. So the, that din that they don't do melacha on Rosh Chodesh is that the husband can't force them to do melacha on Rosh Chodesh. Husband can't force them. So if the Taz equates the two dinim, the din that the minhag of not doing melacha on Rosh Chodesh, that the husband can't force them. So, and Chanukah is like that din. That means husband can't force them. Can't force them. Say, A, can't make them stop. B, if she's within her rights, right, and he can't force it, also means he's still obligated to support her, right? Vimkein uadin after Chanukah. So if so, look, Chanukah also. If Chanukah is like Rosh Chodesh, right, where she's within her rights and husband can't force her, right? Umikoshkein l'svars abach kufei she'en lakolem mitam dvarim amutarim, right? Right. So now, and the Bach himself that holds that we should not be lenient on them. That if that things that even though you hold it's mutter, but they were no isser, you let them keep the isser. You don't say, well, I hold mutter. So according to that principle, so she's within her rights, and we should not even if she offers voluntarily. You know what? I'll do melacha. I took on this minhag of not doing melacha all night long during Chanukah nights or Sunday, and first day and the 8th day. You know what? For you, hubby, I'll do it. No, once you do it, once she's knowing Isser, she has to keep the Isser. All right. So now, with all these halakhic considerations in mind, right? The Zera Shimshon does this for people who are regular in his work. He combines Knechin and halacha with drush, right? Sometimes he throws in Kabbalah in the mix also. So he says with all these pointers, halachic points that we put forward, right? So let's go back. Give her from the fruits of her hands. Give her. We asked what that means. From the fruits of her hands. We asked what that means also. Mahalim osa basha'orim. Right? Give her meat from the fruits of her hands, meaning give her food, support her, even though she's only working for you partially, because she's being machmir not to do melacha while the candles are burning all night long, even beyond a half an hour, or even if the handles go out. They don't do melacha all night long. They don't do melacha on some minhagim, not the first day, not the 8th day. So even though you should give her support, give her mizainas, even though she's holding back mi pri yadeha, right? She's she's not only giving partial, she's only working, part of the time, only part of the time. She's only working very part-time during Chanukah, not at nights, not the first day, not the 8th day. So she's only doing mi pri yadeha. She's only doing a little bit of the fruits of her labors. So it's only pre, but still Tanula, give her full support anyway. And praise her in the gates. Was that for? That's because there's a din in Ner Chanukah where we light it in the gates, right? By the gateway to the house. That's what it means gate. I mean, I don't know if he's going to say it, but it's brought down Sforim. I think that V'yahalus Russian Bielo Ner is also the shine. It's Ner Chanukah. Maybe he'll say that. If he doesn't say it, he should say it because it's true. A lot of Sforim say V'yahalalu Yahel Or. It's Russian Yahel Or. So Yahalua. Right, praise her, but also it has to do with the Yahel, right, the shining. But his main deal is Basharim in the gateways, because it's about Ner Chanukah. Pesach. It's referring to Ner Chanukah, that the mitzvah is to put it in the tefach that's nearest to the entry, the shar, the the petach, the shar, to the bais, that this thing that you're giving her full support, even though she's only doing mipri, she's only doing partial, she's only partly productive. Right, during Chanukah, you still give her Yitnula full support because Lua Basha Orim Ma'aseha, what she's doing is she's doing the schumer during Basha Orim when we light Ner Chanukah in the gateway to the house. Right, now and where the Zera Shimshon doubles down, and I believe the Ramah does. The Ramah says it by the eating milchiks. But either way, we have to remember that one of the reasons why women are chayiv in Ner Chanukah of Afin Hoyu Basanes is not just that they were there. They also suffered on the Greeks. But many Rishonim hold that it's not just that they were there, but they were ikranes, like by Yitzias Mitzrayim, where chayiv in Dal Kaisis is because. In Purim, central figure was Esther, and Chanukah was Yehudis. So there, and give her from the fruits of her hands, So not just that she's partially employed; she's only doing a little, but also you look at the other way. Mi pri yadeha, from the fruits of her hand. What fruits of hand is yes, not the fruits of hand of whatever work she does. During Chanukah, but also the fruits of her hand that she made the whole Nes Chanukah. Womenkind were the ones that brought up a Nes, which in Chanukah was Yehudis, and by Purim it was Esther, and by Pesach was Nashim Tzidkania. So from the fruits of her hand. So from the fruits of her hand on the one hand means she's only doing some work, not a lot of work, not full work because she's taken off on Chanukah. All right, but also Priya there refers to how womankind made Chanukah. They were ikranes. Not going to be Priya there v'lomi maseh there. So now to go further, go deeper into this. Mi Priya there, why not say use the lashon of Chazal? Mi maseh yadeha, from the deeds of her hands. Why the fruits of her hands? Say the deeds of her hands. Mishum de b'ksuvis amir ma'u oselo mishka chamesh loim bihuda agmar pliger b'kiva chachamim im doch ka'atzma. V'asa yoser me'aroila kontrasta arba melachas v'basachas asher b'layla b'shah shedach b'edam lishon im zam moiser hulatzma olabal. Right? So it's a very interesting thing. We have a machlokas in the Gemara without getting into all the details. It's machlos Rebbe Kiva and Chachamim. Right, so like there's a certain minimal amount of work a woman has to do, right? So Mishka Chamesh Slaim in Yehuda, right? That's it. Right, without getting into the details, here's the question: what if she's very conscientious and she's very quick, good at multitasking, and she does a lot more at the same time? She does a lot more, he gives an example. She multitasks. At one time, she did 4 different malachas. She did 4 different jobs at once, right? Or she worked all night when people are not expected to work. So she gets ahead, because she either works overtime, like working all night, or she multitasks and managed to do 4 things at once instead of just one thing at once, all right? So that extra, productivity, who does it belong to? Her or the husband, right? Yeah, she did more than expected because of overtime or multitasking, either or. So who gets the benefit of that? Her or him? The extra. Who's the go-to? Right? 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 So it remains a machlokas aposkim also, right? So it says the Zera Shimshon, at least one thing can be agreed on: the kuliyama miha masha shaykh lo yokach bem karka v'abal ochel peres ayin sham. So let's just say, she took the extra for herself, right? Even if that's the case, it's a machlokas whether that was the right thing to do. Let's say it happened. right? So even the people would say the extra belongs to her. Even according to that opinion, still she can't just put it in some Swiss bank account. Nah. What she's got to do is she takes that money that she was awarded or she grabbed and moving forward, what you're supposed to do with it, according to everybody, even the people that say she rightfully deserves it, buy a piece of land, and the land will be hers, but the revenue will belong to the husband. So if it's a fruit-bearing field, right, so the fruits belong to the husband, and if it's like a rental property, so the rent belongs to the husband, right? So the principle, the thing itself, will belong to her, but and that's what she has to do. That's what she has to do, even according to the poskim that award the extra to her. But it's not hers exclusively, because she's still married, and he has rights to whatever she owns. All right. So what you do is, buy a piece of land. The real estate itself belongs to her. The productivity, whether it's fruit or rents, belong to him. Okay. This term, Migvuras hayadayim shelo shemotzia pri. So now he's like, listen, the term Maaseyadeha, that is the conventional term, and that's how you find it throughout Chazal, her earnings. Maaseyadeh lebala, if he supports her, so her earnings belong to him, right? So Maaseyadeh is, handiwork, which makes good sense. It's what she does with her hands. That's her profession, or that's, there's certain things she has to do because that's part of her obligations as a wife to a husband, certain household duties, as we know. All right, that's called Maaseyadeh. But what she does, because she's super duper conscientious, what we described, you can't call it Maaseyadeh because it's not natural. It's not the normal productivity and handiwork of, she pushed herself and did overtime or above and beyond or multitask, like going above and beyond, normal productivity should not be called stam Maaseyadeh. That's for normal productivity. It should be called mipriyadeh, the fruits of her hand, because like something new. Because in this time, a woman in a day produces this much. She produced double. It's like, so that's not just the handiwork. Because the handiwork is the normal expectation. This like above expectation that she pushed herself to do is like a new fruit. It's like popped out of nowhere, blossomed out of nowhere. Then the same amount of time she did more. You can't call that more maaseh. That's not the right noun for it. The right name for it would be priyadeha. It's like something new, like a new fruit, right? Right? And therefore the pasuk says, going back to if priyadeh refers to, what she overproduces in overtime or by multitasking, so therefore me priyadeh, give her from the fruits of her hand. Mizonos afal pishen osam lacha b'yamela fisha tachas chiyuv ze yesh la zchut lishlo bepriyodeha she'osa ayedei hadchak. Right? So he's saying it's like a musavort, because chance, if I understand him correctly, right? Trula mi priyadeh, give her full support, even though she's doing very little work during the days of Chanukah. If she takes on all the chumras of not all night and not the first day, not the eighth day, and even in hagim of women doing even less malacha than that, give her, because remember, mi priyadeha, right? Aren't there times that she worked overtime and did a little extra that you don't really deserve, right? At least according to the poskim, it's not clearly yours, right? Right? So give her credit, because sometimes she does priyadeha. So it's like a musafart. Remember priyadeha, that, she could have gone to Bezdin and put up a fuss and Hamotzi mechaver of right, you'd have to prove conclusively that the din is that stuff that she produced by being overly conscientious is yours. You would have the burden of proof would be on you, right? And I think that's the halacha taka. If we would go to a din Torah, since it remains a machlokas haposkim, a motz chaver of araya. Just it happens to be that even the ones that would award it to her say she has to invest in real estate, and the fruits or the rents would be his, but still, she would still own the capital, right? It would be her field or her rental property, right? And it rarely happens that a woman will put up a fuss on every penny that she produced by being overly conscientious that, hey, I think this is mine, let's go to Bezin. Most of the time she'll let you take it like you take everything else, right? So remember, Tnula, Mipriya there. Remember the fruits of her hands. The fruits hand refers to what she produces by being overly conscientious, doing overtime or multitasking, and you take it. Okay, yeah. So you could let her, you could let it slide, and let her also, take off on Chanukah, and be machmir, not to do malacha, like these other minhagim of like all night and not on the first day, not on the eighth day, et cetera, because, let it ride, because you also take me priyadeha that you could easily put up a fight over. All right? But, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I learned it wrong. I'm sorry. I learned it wrong. I should say, people, for some people catching this video for the first time, hearing me for the first time, I always say, when I learn a sefer inside, I am learning it b'chavrusa with my audience. This is a real-time chavrusa. I don't give a pre-packaged share. Texts that I teach in audio, video is a chavrusa between me and my audience. Most people like it that way. It makes it more genuine and more real. Of course, when I advertise a presentation, it's a packaged presentation. But when it's a sefer, I'm learning in real time. So I read it wrong. First of all, not to say that the idea that I said is false. That is, I think it's a true idea. But it's not what he said. But I think it's a true idea. One could say, remember Priyadeha, she doesn't take you to Bezdin on every extra to make your life hell, to actually get it out of her. Because chances are, if we'll go to the Torah, she would keep it. Because she could say Kimli, like those poskim that say it's mine. So what I said, I believe, is a true idea and could be read into the pasuk that way. But that's not what he says. He wants to say even the way I said it was a musafar, which I believe is true, because I do believe that's the halacha. If it would be a din Torah, she could say Kimli, like those poskim that say the extra is mine, and that rarely happens. So you could forego her on Chanukah also. But he's saying a chiddush the other way, right? And I'll read it again inside more carefully. Are ben abalitin lanisha chel mezainas alav sheno sam lachabiyamel fi shetach schiu zeyesh schus lisho priyadeh shol saideh tchak. He's saying the other way. He, theoretically in a din Torah, now could say, well, listen, I let her goof off on Chanukah, for lack, pardon my French, right? I let her, I let her get away, for lack of a better way of saying it, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, right? I let her be machmir, right? Not to do malacha all night long, right? All the nights of Hanukkah, and not to do malacha the first day, not the eighth day, any combination thereof, or, let alone that there were minhagim that women did even less malacha days Hanukkah. He wants to taina, if you cut her that slack, you could come to Bezdin and actually, Taina, now I get me priyadeh. I should get her overtime, because her overtime, right, is to compensate for the time that she didn't do malacha at my expense. Okay, she wants to be all spiritual, but okay, so I couldn't force her to do otherwise, as per the Taz that builds it, that makes it like the way the Bach explained the din of women not doing malacha on Rosh Chodesh, that minhag, So as per the Taz, that equated, not doing malacha on Chanukah for women, like women not doing malacha on Rosh Chodesh, that you can't force her. Okay, you can't force her to do it. You just can't. Doesn't mean you have to take a loss. Doesn't mean you have to take a financial loss. So it is a big chiddush. What he's saying is a much bigger chiddush than what I thought. I thought he was saying a musav vort. Sometimes she gives you mipriyadeh, let it ride, and I believe there's truth to that idea. And I think it's actually quite practical. I doubt the woman always challenges the husband, on this. This I feel was extra. This should come to me. Not that ever happens, or it happens very seldomly and only probably on very large amounts, not on the, So I think the idea that I said, I believe is true, a true idea that you should let it ride over here because she's also not nickeling and diming you either. That say this is extra, I could have got away with producing less. Okay. All right, but okay, I'm sorry. I'm in love with my own ideas. Let's go back to what the Zera Shimshon say. He's saying a big chiddush that he wants to taina that, okay, you can't force a do malacha, but you don't have to take a loss either. So let's say after Chanukah, so she works like crazy and she does triple time to make up for all the time that, for lack of a better word, goofed off during Chanukah. And I mean that, I'm just, that's my style, okay? Right, so, she can't say, okay, look, during these days after Chanukah, the week after when I was doing catch-up and I was working double, triple time, I was working late into the night or I was multi to make up. All right, so all that extra than what is produced in a normal day should go to me. No. All that extra goes to me because you're making up for what you caused me to lose on Chanukah. Because even though I couldn't force you to do malacha on Chanukah, I didn't have to lose out from it. So I didn't have to couldn't force you to violate your principles, right? But I didn't have to take a hit on it, and therefore I could take me priya there, your extra, to compensate for whatever I lost during the time you were not working during Chanukah, right? That's what he says. Big chiddush. That's what he writes. It's an amazing thing that he could. He could. That's a very big chiddush. I would have not. Huge chiddush. I said a smaller chiddush. He's saying a big chiddush. That indeed you can. Demand, compensation. You will retain her overtime and her take that benefits until it pays up for the work deficit that there was during Chanukah. That's what he says. Okay, so now he goes back to saying drush, but that is a very big chiddush la'alacha he's saying over here. Oh yeah, sure. Pasuk zebin shel Chanukah sharei Rosh shel tnu la mi priyadeh hu talmi. Now this now just going back to the pasuk tnu la. Mipri Yadeha is Rosh Tevis Talmi, right? Talmi, who was the Egyptian Greek king, which is strange. Let's see what he does with it. Like I say, I'm learning this with you in real time. I did not look at this piece before I sat down to make this video. That's my policy when learning a sefer. When learning a sefer inside, it's a chavrusa between me and my audience. Okay, so I'm just interested. I'm intrigued as to what he's going to do with this because Talmi was not Talmi and Antiochus are not synonyms. The Greek Empire split after Alexander died. I think it split in more than two ways, but the two ways I remember off the top of my hands. There's the Greek Egyptians, and Talmi was their king, like Ptolemean model of astronomy, Talmi Amelech. That's who they translated Torah to in Greek, and that was like 50, 60 years or something like that, before the story of Chanukah, which was with the Assyrian Greeks. That was king was Antiochus, right? There's Talmi, those are the Egyptian Greeks, and then there's Antiochus. Those are the Syrian Greeks. Okay, so but Tnu la mi pri yadeha, the Rosh Tevis is Talmi, right? ותחיית גבורס, קליפס היבון היה כשאיתו התורה ללשון יבוני כמו שאמרו רז"ל, Right? So he wants to say, and and it's not an idea, it's hard to understand, that really what created the koach of Tumah, that gave koach to the Yevonim in general, Yevonim as a general category, it started 50, 60, whatever it was, years earlier, when they put the Torah into Greek for the Talmi HaMelech, the Egyptian Greek king, right? But they put the Torah in Greek for him, and Chazal say for that day, when that happened, there was 3 days of darkness in the world, because the koach of Torah went out, and empowered the Ummah Sa'olam and empowered the Greek Empire. And that setback of giving the Koach Torah away, and brought darkness to all that. Yavan is called Choshech, as we know. Choshech, Zu Yavan, Shiranem, Zera. Golos Yavan is called Choshech, and the darkness came to the world because they translated the Torah in Greek for Talmi HaMelech some 60 some odd years, but somewhere between 60 and 100 years before the story of Chanukah, something like that. And that gave koach to the Tumah of the Yevonim. In fact, we put the Torah in their language, even though it happened with the other branch of the Greek Empire, the Egyptian Greeks, Archibald Ashram Vinitzko Koshkosva Tzemach David Shalazar Shahuma Saidei Antiochus Ben Tishim Shonaya Ben Chavsha Kjutar Talmi. Oh, this would confirm where it's like 60 years, as we say. 60, 70 years. Like we said, because the Hashmonaim beating back the Greeks was the Assyrian Greeks was a tikkun for the spiritual setback that there was 60, 70 years earlier with the Egyptian Greeks. All right, and he further brings from the Tzemach David, a famous Jewish historian. I think it was a Talmud of the Maharal Prague, so Tzemach David lived not too much before him, less than 200 years earlier. Less 100 and change years earlier than the Zera Shimshon, who was roughly a contemporary of the Ramchal, moved in the same circles. David Pinchi was his Rebbe, and David Pinchi was also the Ramchal's father-in-law. Okay, so it's early 1700s, mid to late 1500s, Tzemach David. Talmud of Maharal, was not an ancient sefer in the days of the Zera Shimshon. So the Tzemach David says that Elazar, from the Hashmonaim, that was killed by Antiochus, was 90 years old. Right? He was 90 years old, and he was 20 years old when they, at the time when they had translated the Torah into Yevonis, into Greek, for the, for Talmi, for the Egyptian Greek guy. So that Maisa, was 70 years earlier. 70 years earlier. Right, 70 years earlier. So it wasn't 60, it was 70, according to simple math. 90, and he was 20 at the time. So 70 years earlier, when they translated the Torah in Greek, for the Egyptian branch of the Greek Empire, they were independent branches, right? That gave koach to Yavan in general. Right, that brought Choshech to the world, the Choshech zu Yavan, and then the pushback against the Assyrian Greeks was a tikkun for that. So Elazar, who made the tikkun in his 90s, was in his 20s and alive and active when it happened, 70 years earlier. So to to tighten the connection to Chanukah, Talmi is alluded to there because we said this pasuk refers to the woman not doing malacha on Chanukah. Chanukah was a tikkun for the kilkul that had started 70 years earlier with Talmi, and indeed it was what the tikkun was. It's not just a tikkun that it's just spiritually linked. It's actually physically linked because Elazar Cohen, who was 20 years old at the time of Talmi HaMelech, was zocher to participate in the campaign. He was executed by Antiochus because he was part of the revolt that pushed back at the age of 90. So there's it was like most literally a tikkun, not just because it's spiritually linked, but even some of the same players that were alive by the setback, lived 70 years later to be part of the revolt that made the tikkun. All right, and we should also see in nowadays, nisim, that there were by Yamim Bisman Hazeh, Hashem Yazor, Alech Chanukah, everybody.